and welcome to Living Clean. I'm your host, Glenn Allen. On Living Clean, we've done about 100 live episodes, and we've kind of touched on the surface a couple of times about eating disorders. But tonight is a night where we're going to be focusing on eating disorders, and that's it. This is a subject that needs to be talked about. It deserves much more time than we're going to give it this evening. And we want your phone calls, whether it's you, a family member, a close friend, someone that's close to you. We all, I think, can say that we know somebody who is either suffering with anorexia, bulimia, overeating or compulsive overeating. I know in my life there are two significant people whose lives I watched fall apart because of this terrible disease. And joining me this evening to discuss this and more are two women who you will really get to know this evening. First is Dr. Joan Johnston, and Dr. Johnston is an MD, a Canadian family physician from Edmonton, Alberta, who has a special interest in working with individuals afflicted with eating disorders. Her expertise emerges from more than 2 decades of personal recovery from anorexia nervosa. She's a writer and published author. Her works include the book Feast of Famine, which we will talk about, and that is an autobiography account of her 15-year struggle with the disease, culminating in her healing through various programs. And since 1992, Dr. Johnston has been a frequent speaker and workshop leader in the field of eating disorders. She brings both her own compelling story and her extensive clinical expertise to share with you this evening. Also on the program is Sue McCaw. And Sue is the manager of patient care, Bellwood Health Services. And in particular, she heads up the eating disorders treatment team. Ladies, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I say that, let me just open up with just so that our viewers have a bit of an idea where we're all coming from this evening, because I want to know more about Bellwood and when your program that deals with all of this. And we really want to get to know you because you have been doing such wonderful work for so many years. And this, I think you would agree, will somewhat typify. Now, some people, and I'm going to ask you to just kind of let us know the differences, because this isn't a food addiction. We're talking about eating disorders. Yeah. But we had an email, and this person said, I've been overweight all my life. I've struggled with a diet, self-worth, appearance, blah, blah, blah. It was only recently that they put a name to my eating disorder. You see, I don't binge, I don't purge, I don't starve, I compulsively overeat. This is something that I've been fighting for over 30 years now, and it is so easy to just give in and eat. Same as any other addiction, I have no control over it. Even as I'm overeating, I'm talking to myself about it and hoping this will be the last time. But it never is. I know how easy it is to fall back into old habits. I mean, I've heard it all. Just push yourself away from the table. Just stop. Start exercising more again, blah, blah, blah. I can recite verbatim all the reasons I need to change this behavior, but I'm not at the right place yet. I do talk it over with people ad nauseum, professional people. I ask for the willpower or the strength to eat healthy, but man, I slip right back within hours, sometimes minutes of praying. Anyway, this is a great topic. God, give me strength. And I thought that was just a great way to start our program tonight, because, and I have some stats that I'm going to throw out, and I think our audience is going to be very surprised at what is happening in our society when it comes to all this. But Dr. Johnston and Sue, what are your first thoughts when you hear an email like that?
Go ahead.
Well, I hear somebody who's in a lot of pain. That's the first thing that comes up. It's also somebody who's really sick. As an anorexic, I didn't think I was sick. I wasn't sick. I was a physician, and I was working with people with eating disorders occasionally if they happened to come to me. I'm a family doctor. And I knew that I was an anorexic. I'd been hospitalized a number of years before, but at the end of the day, they were sick. My patient was sick, and I would say, "Oh, you're really sick. I'm going to send you to a psychiatrist. If I saw an anorexic, you're going to go to a psychiatrist because you could die from this." But at the end of the day, when I got home and looked in the mirror, I wasn't sick. I was doing it by choice. If I was a better person, I would be able to stop. I was convinced that I was doing it by choice, that if I was a better person, had some integrity or courage or decency about me, I would stop. And that was what kept me sick, because the self-hatred that I felt from doing what I did with food day in and day out. I was a low-weight, restrictive anorexic, and I had watched my mother suffer from it, you know, the pain of watching her daughter die in front of her eyes. A marriage had gone down the toilet because of my anorexia. I'd brought all this pain on all these people, and I was sure I was doing that by choice. I was hanging on to my anorexia by choice. If I was a better person, I would stop. So I hated myself, and the only way to relieve the pain of hating myself was to do what I'd always done as a pain reliever, which was anorexia. It gave me the relief from the pain of hating myself. It also gave me the punishment that I knew I deserved.
Right.
So it was both punishment and a way to relieve the pain of hating myself. Yeah, but the belief, the guilt.
I really want to get into your story, and I want to talk about the book. And just before we do that, Sue, when you hear an email, when you hear that pain that Dr. Johnston refers to, you hear that so much because you deal with that at Bellwood. Talk a little bit about the email, and then talk a little bit about what great services you have at Bellwood for those who are afflicted with this disease.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. Actually, you could plug in any other name into that email. You could put anorexia, you could put bulimia, the compulsive overeating into that email. The similar story pervades really throughout eating disorders, the secrecy, the longevity of it as well. So at Bellwood, we have inpatient eating disorder treatment programs. We bring the individual in and we house them at Bellwood from anywhere from 45 to 80 days. Taking that first step is difficult for some people, so there's stepping stones towards that. So we'll do outpatient counseling for that person who may not be ready for an inpatient residential treatment. And we're opening up in March a 10-week binge bulimia early treatment group. So that's just exposure to people who know they've got a problem but don't know where to take those first steps. And then to go along with that, we're having a 4-week family education program, because with any other addiction, the eating disorder is a disease of the family. Just as Joan described watching family and friends, and you described your personal account as well.
Yeah. Dr. Johnston, when I'd just like you to relate your subject, because Sue talks about taking those first steps. When did you know? I know you know, but when did you know that? I have to change. And what was it that allowed you to change and begin taking those steps to change your life?
Oh boy. Well, I had been treated with the usual treatment. I had been hospitalized because I was nearly dead from starvation 5 years into my illness. That was at the end of my internship year. I started anorexia when I got into medical school. Okay. And I didn't know at first what I had. This is back in the 1960s, and I didn't know that I was anorexic. I'd never heard the word. Right. And discovered that in my second year of medical school when I found myself in a psychiatric textbook. 3 years later, during my internship, my weight was at its lowest point, and I was hospitalized on a locked psychiatric unit, and had the usual treatment, which is still given today. I was in hospital for 2 months, refeeding and so on, and I had 2 months of treatment that brought me out of the danger zone for dying from starvation, but didn't relieve the obsession of my mind. The belief that I was fat, the belief that if I let up for 1 minute on my careful control of food, then I would be 300 pounds by tomorrow. So that didn't make any difference at all. For the next 9 years, I continued to basically be in denial that this is a big problem. Yeah, I'm anorexic, but then, oh well, other people have other things to contend with. This is just something I have to put up with. And it took quite a bit to bring me to a bottom. I lost a marriage. 5 years later, I finally hit my bottom after I lost my ability to work, because I could no longer look another patient in the eye and pretend for one more minute that I was okay, that I was an okay person, that I was normal, because I lied to everybody. I hid, I pretended. Nobody knew what I did with my rituals with food behind closed doors. And I couldn't stand the guilt anymore of being such a liar. That was what brought me to a bottom. I was going to either have to kill myself or I was going to have to recover.
You said just before I asked that question, you know, you can put in anorexia, bulimia, compulsive eating. You can also put alcohol, drugs, any other addiction. Anyone who's watching this program who has any idea about what addiction and or recovery is all about and knows what you were feeling and what you were going through is no different than an alcoholic at the end of their rope, a drug addict at the end of their rope. And I'd like to get both of your opinions just before we go to break here, because then you can disagree with me, that's okay, even though it's my show, it's okay, you can disagree with me. But I tire sometimes of, and I understand why certain programs have to be the way they are, but really addiction is addiction is addiction at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right?
The first step is surrender. Admit that you're powerless over this and that you need help. And for most people, it comes in the form of a crisis, as Dr. Joan described. Someone ends up in an ICU bed in a hospital on a ventilator. No one wakes up on a Tuesday morning and decides it's a good day to go to treatment.
Exactly.
There's a precipitating crisis usually that brings them in. And it can be that personal time in the mirror, or it can be the family says, this is it, we can't take this anymore. This is what's going to happen if you continue this.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you one more question, and just before we go to break, I said that a minute ago, but we're going to, because, I've talked to different doctors, and some of those doctors are in recovery as well. And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked them. How hard was it? You know, you lost the marriage and all that, but how much harder was it knowing that you were a professional? How much did that weigh on you going, how am I going to go on and get help? I'm supposed to know better.
That was actually a big factor. Anorexics have this huge belief that we are more powerful than anybody else in the world, and so that really fed into my being a doctor. I mean, the two kind of came together, my anorexia and being a physician. However, I just was in so much pain I couldn't stand my life anymore. I mean, I think everybody with an addiction eventually reaches that point, and it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a plumber, an unemployed person, it doesn't matter. We reached the point where I could not stand living my life anymore. I knew that my life as a practicing anorexic was over. I was either going to have to kill myself or I was going to have to recover, because that was the point for me.
You know, I can't, it's a segue that we're going to go to our commercial on, and when we come back, we're going to go to the phone lines. They're beginning to fill up. We have an opportunity this evening to talk about this disease, and we'd like to hear from you. Maybe you're somebody who has gone through this, and you've come out the other side, and you have a story to tell. We have to remember on this program that there are people out there who are still suffering. And I want you to please think about that and pick up that phone and tell your story and offer up your strength, your hope, your encouragement for somebody this evening. If you're in crisis, if you need to talk, call in the show tonight. If you're a person who is a family member or a friend, call in the program tonight and ask your questions, because that's what we're here for this evening. Okay, we're going to do that. We have lots more to talk about. We're going to talk about the book that Dr. Johnston wrote as well when we come back. You're watching Living Clean. Please stay tuned.
Are you struggling with an addiction? At Bellwood, we provide treatment for problems with alcohol, drugs, gambling, sexual addiction, and eating disorders. Our goal is to get you back on track with your job, your family, your life. We're just a phone call away. Call Bellwood Health Services now to schedule a confidential assessment. 1-800-387-6198. or visit bellwood.ca. Bellwood Health Services. Discover the freedom of being well.
Is someone else's drinking affecting your life? Does it make you feel angry?
Don't yell at me because you're mad at your mom. She's the drunk, not me.
Does it make you feel sorry for yourself?
Hey, Tanya's drinking again, and maybe next time.
Or does it even make you feel frightened?
Does Daddy have to drink so much?
No matter how you feel, we can help. We're Al-Anon family groups, and we know what it's like. Just call 1-888-4-AL-ANON. To help them, you have to help yourself first.
At 7 years old, I was sexually abused for the very first time. I became aware that it's very difficult for you to make fun of me while you're sitting flat on your back with a split lip or your nose bleeding. I became a bully. All of a sudden, I'd start drinking at 15 years old, in and out of town, and I'm going, boy, does this feel good. What an escape. What a lie. They told me, Glenn, if you don't stop drinking and drugging, you're gonna die. They were right. You gotta deal with the issue. Well, I don't fit in if I don't. My group, if I don't smoke up, if I don't smoke a cigarette, if I don't take that drink, I'm not gonna fit in. Find new friends. Everybody in this room is a role model, whether you like it or not. It's your choice whether you're gonna be a good one or not. Good people make good choices. People who are good and compassionate to other people. That's who I want to hang out with today. Choice is yours.
Moods Magazine is all about healthy living through understanding. Moods Magazine addresses depression, anxiety, addictions, bipolar disorder. We talk about healthy living, balancing your life, both at work and at home. Moods Magazine, available in Chapters and Indigo stores across Canada, also available by subscription. Visit www.moodsmag.com.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Living Clean. I'm your host, Glenn Allen. Joining me this evening talking about eating disorders, Dr. Joan Johnston and Sue McCaw. And we're taking your phone calls. And just before we go to the phones, just want to talk about really quickly, I talk about on this program, and we also talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder, which shows up a lot in dealing with people with eating disorders as well, and I want to get into that. But Kaylee, if you can just throw that up on the screen right now. Male survivors of sexual abuse is hosting a Help and Hope series, and that's through the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness. It's information, as you see, for survivors and family and friends. You can call that 800 number and register for that. It's coming up. Probably help if I told you when it was coming up. Hey, Saturday, February 9th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can also go to livingclean.ca and click on the Canadian Centre for Abuse Awareness and go to their website and register through them. But most certainly, I'm going to be speaking at that as well, part of a panel at that particular event as well. And they're utilizing Martin Cruise's, the movie that they did on Martin Cruise as well. That's going to be part of the day. So if you're an adult male survivor of childhood sexual abuse or a family member or somebody who would like to know more about how to deal with a family member or how to deal with it yourself, by all means, please register for that. Kaylee, we also want to hold up, this is the book, this is Feast of Famine, and this is the book that Joan, Dr. Johnston, that you put together a number of years ago, but it is still selling online. Tell us a little bit about that book.
It's basically my story, and the final two sections of it are about recovery and about how to recover. It's brought a lot of people into recovery. Various people found it here and there around the world, actually, and contacted me, and it's been instrumental in a few people getting into recovery. So it served its purpose.
Yeah.
I started writing it when I started recovery in 1983, but I didn't complete it until 1991, and it was published in 1993. So it is out of print, but it is available online if people know how to go about getting books.
Doing
online.
all that technical stuff?
Yeah, all that stuff that I don't know anything about.
That's okay. Feast of Famine is the book, and we need to be able to take somebody by the hand, somebody coming in. I remember what it was like when I came in for the alcohol and drugs, and I can't thank the people who were at the detox center. I can't thank, well, first the hospital, then the detox center, and then some people involved in particular 12 steps and 12-step groups, and just people who cared.
Yeah.
Who came to visit us while we were still trying to figure out who in the world we were and what we wanted to do, and then going to treatment and then to a recovery house, and all the people that cared, no strings attached. And when you read a book like this, it's having that friend that you can take with you, and just keep that friend. I remember I got a book in detox. It was a particular book. It was called God's Inspirational Promise Book by Max Lucado. But it was, I read it, and it was like somebody followed me around. And you know, it's not your typical churchy book. I mean, it's written for addicts, and I certainly could relate to it because number one, it was in layman's terms, and it talked about what it means today, for what the different subjects are. You know, dealing with anger, dealing with hurt, dealing with resentment. I know nobody can relate to that.
Not at all.
At all. So anyway, let's go to the phones. We have people on the line right now. We're going to start in London, line 5. Jay, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead, please.
I'm a little nervous.
That's okay, buddy.
Thanks for taking my call. I'm sorry I don't really have an uplifting story, but I'm just going to tell you what's going on in my life.
Sure, go ahead.
I cleaned up from drugs and alcohol in 1994, and I went through the Newport Center in Port Colborne, and it's a wonderful place, and I've been clean ever since. And I just find, I started to be treated for clinical depression 2 years ago, and I've been on this, that, and the other, and my doctor sees me quite often, but I've come up, my sorrows outweigh my happinesses, and I just have this plan of, I just give up. So, I don't want to jump in front of a train or hang myself or do anything like that. I devised this plan where I try to make it look natural so my insurance still works. I even went as far as to talk to my brother about rewriting my will, becoming my power of attorney. I've took out all my RSPs to pay down some debts. I've worked 25 years in the same facility. I have a good job, but I stopped eating on the 23rd of January. All I've had is like every day I'll have a couple cookies. I'll have water and I still take my medication. And I'm losing weight pretty fast, but I can't believe my energy level for not eating. But I'm just hoping for a heart attack or something to go wrong with something to go wrong. I don't know, the kidneys or whatever, and then it's like a natural death. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't want to go back to drinking and drugs, but I just find it so hard to cope with life's stresses anymore.
Jay, I'm glad you called us tonight. Can I ask when the last time was that you saw your doctor? Because what I'm hearing, Jay, is I would like to hear you make an appointment this week to see your doctor again and share exactly with your doctor what you've just shared with us tonight.
I don't want to be thrown on a psych ward.
And that may very well not happen, Jay. I can't I speak to what your doctor will decide.
He'll see it as I have a plan for suicide. And I've seen therapists and whatnot, and they always say, you're a nice guy, you got your shit together. And
I hear that you still have hope, Jay, because you're calling in to us tonight.
Jay, you still there?
Thought I would call because of the topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly, Jay, it's coming from the alcohol drug side of it. Man, I know it, for me, it was, and when you hear Dr. Johnston, even with whether it's addiction is addiction is addiction, I said that earlier, when you're at the end of your rope, man, it's dark and it's gloomy, and there were times I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. And the doctor told me that, Glenn, if you're going to come home really wasted one night and you're going to fall asleep on your back and you're not going to wake up. Well, guess what? I slept on my back purposely when I would come home drunk, hoping that I would die. And it's a very desperate place to be in. And Jay, I really want to encourage you to reach out. And do you have anybody? You say that you've been in and around the drugs and alcohol. Is there anybody that that you could reach out to, maybe that's maybe in the program or anything like that? Can you call somebody? When
I first got out of the Newport Center, I went to NAA meetings and that, but I just over time I found I didn't need it. And like, I'm not doom and gloom. I'm not sad. I'm happy. Like I told my brother, I'm happy with my choice. I've just had enough. I'm going to get out of this car and get into the next one. And I know it sounds crazy, but I just saw your topic and I thought I'd call in.
Well, it's certainly nothing to be taken lightly. And
No.
I kind of cut off Sue and Dr. Johnston. You guys go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, it really sounds like you're in a lot of pain, and I know for me, the only solution is I need a lot of support. I also, after I stopped doing anorexia in 1983, I jumped into alcohol, and I jumped into a few other addictions, and so my recovery has been marred by crossing over to other addictions, and that's a really common scenario. What I know today is I've been in really solid recovery since I got with other people in a variety of fellowships that I can have a sponsor and I can go to meetings and I can get the support that I need. Otherwise, the doom and gloom comes on really fast because my old thinking comes back. So I know the place you're in, I've been there, and I really encourage you to get support and also to get, as Sue mentioned, the medical treatment that you may in fact need for depression, because depression is a very real entity.
Yeah, it's something too, Jay, that it sounds like you're making a decision and really ending it all. You've actually found some peace in that, and I know that at the end of my addiction, there was some half-hearted suicidal ideation, but at the very end, when I figured out what I was going to do, I did find a peace. And that's a real dangerous place to be in. And I guess that's what really concerns me, Jay, is you found peace in the fact that you're okay with checking out. And really, it doesn't have to be that way. I was at that point where I wanted that. And I would have missed these last 10 years and what I have today, but by God's grace and the people who work in the field of addiction and people who open the doors of various groups and recovery groups and what have you, I would have missed out on getting married and having kids and helping other people. But at one time in my life, I was exactly where you're at. I completely understand where you're at. And I guess what I'm saying, it's hard to tell you to go to your doctor. You don't want to go to your doctor because he's going to tell you what you don't want to hear. You don't want, you don't want the help. But I'm telling you, man, pick up the phone tomorrow and call your doctor. Pick up the phone tomorrow and call someone in your family, and know that, man, there is a better side to all of this. You never could have convinced me that 10 years ago. And a couple of weeks ago on this program, we talked about, I celebrated 10 years of being in recovery. It's absolutely unbelievable what has happened in that time. It's unbelievable what's happened in your time. It's unbelievable what you see when people do get better. And Jay, I just really want to encourage you, man, to make a decision to let some people in and let them work with you, because you're worth it. And you need to give yourself a chance to get better, and I hope that you do that. And I want to thank you for your phone call. And I hope that you do make that choice. We're going to take one more really quick break, and when we come back, our first two calls, we're going to Burlington and then Ottawa. Back with more Living Clean right after this.
Is someone else's drinking affecting your life? Does it make you feel angry?
Don't yell at me because you're mad at your mom. She's the drunk, not me.
Does it make you feel sorry for yourself?
Hey, Tanya's drinking again, and maybe next time.
Or does it even make you feel
Does
frightened?
Daddy have to drink so much?
No matter how you feel, we can help. We're Al-Anon family groups, and we know what it's like. Just call 1-888-4-AL-ANON. To help them, you have to help yourself first.
At 7 years old, I was sexually abused for the very first time. I became aware that it's very difficult for you to make fun of me while you're sitting flat on your back with a split lip or your nose bleeding. I became a bully. All of a sudden, I'd start drinking at 15 years old, in and out of town, and I'm going, boy, does this feel good. What an escape. What a lie. They told me, Glenn, if you don't stop drinking and drugging, you're gonna die. They were right. You gotta deal with the issue. Well, I don't fit in if I don't. My group, if I don't smoke up, if I don't smoke a cigarette, if I don't take that drink, I'm not gonna fit in. Find new friends. Everybody in this room is a role model, whether you like it or not. It's your choice whether you're gonna be a good one or not. Good people make good choices. People who are good and compassionate to other people. That's who I wanna hang out with today. Choice is yours.
Moods Magazine is all about healthy living through understanding. Moods Magazine addresses depression, anxiety, addictions, bipolar disorder. We talk about healthy living, balancing your life, both at work and at home. Moods Magazine, available in Chapters and Indigo stores across Canada, also available by subscription. Visit www.moodsmag.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction? At Bellwood, we provide treatment for problems with alcohol, drugs, gambling, sexual addiction, and eating disorders. Our goal is to get you back on track with your job, your family, your life. We're just a phone call away. Call Bellwood Health Services now to schedule a confidential assessment. 1-800-387-6198 or visit bellwood.ca. Bellwood Health Services. Discover the freedom of being well.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Living Clean. Glenn Allen alongside Dr. Johnston, Sue McCaw of Bellwood Health Services, and Dr. Johnston, of course, eating disorder specialist and author. And we've talked a little bit about Feast of Famine, your book. And just before we go back to the phones, I want to touch on, I'm going to touch on the workshops in a few minutes. But I'd like to talk about the Eating Disorder Recovery Day program that you're involved with. And
yes, I'm medical director of the SACRED. It stands for Society for Assisted Cooperative Recovery from Eating Disorders. It's in Edmonton, Alberta, and there's a website if people are interested in that. It's sacredeatingdisorders.com.
If you don't get that, I'll make sure that that's up on our website this week. So okay. I'll send that over to Rose this evening, and she's good for that. So that should be up on our website, livingclean.ca, tomorrow. Just in case anybody didn't get that. Yeah. And again, if you do want it, sacredeatingdisorders.com. But like I said, we'll have that up on ours. We want to get back to the phones, so we're going to talk about the workshops in just a few minutes. We're going to go to Elizabeth in Burlington. She's on line 1. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. I've gotten blanked in names.
That's okay.
To the crew. I was busy doing something and waiting to get in line, and then anyway, why I'm calling is could I encourage Jay over the phone? Are you
sure
for that?
Absolutely.
Jay, I'm really heartbroken of your pain and the hardship you have gone through. I know I've gone through a really bad one the last 2 weeks. And I had to think of everything that you could imagine. And then the Lord said to me to turn to His Word, to the Bible, and to get encouragement and guidance. And so I started to study on the feeling that I feel, I actually studied on pride for myself. And I found that, God was telling me I am proud. And I found encouragement in knowing what I have to do and how to get over that hard time. It's a public thing, and I need to do it publicly. And I highly recommend for Jay to turn to the Bible. And if you have one, turn to it. Look at the very back index, and it will tell you all kinds of things that you can look up. And be encouraged by it, because it will guide you, it will give you strength, and it will bring healing to your mind, your heart, and your soul. And now I'll go to my question, not to take up too much time, so somebody else can call.
Sure.
But I will be praying for you, Jay, because you have worth and you have value, and you have a purpose to the life that you may not want. That's the purpose God wants. When we don't want much of us, He wants all of us. Anyway, to do with the eating disorders, I have a niece that does not want to eat, and I'm wondering. She was born premature and absolutely hates to eat.
How old is she?
This has been, I guess, since she's been 3. She's probably about 5. She is nothing but skin and bone. And the last time I seen her, and I was wondering, can any abuse be linked to her being skinny?
Interesting. Thanks very much for the phone call, Elizabeth.
So the question is there, could abuse be linked to her being thin? Is that?
Yeah, I guess the number one question was she's in around 3 to 5. She's around 5 years old.
Yeah.
She's all skin and bone, and she won't eat.
Yeah.
Number one, I guess, is she was prematurely born. Could that have something to do with it, or could there be abuse on the other side of it?
Oh boy,
it's hard to.
That's a really difficult. It's a difficult situation. Probably would not be an eating disorder per se, meaning a primary problem with eating, but probably in this case secondary to something else. A 3-year-old who stops eating, there's usually going to be some underlying reason why she's not eating. Not that she's afraid of getting fat, which is basically what anorexia is. So in this case. Clearly, you need to have professional people involved with her, and I hope that she is, in fact, being seen by competent doctors.
Yeah, something like that is so difficult to answer over the phone. And, could abuse be there? Yeah, but I mean, I'd hate to throw abuse out there without knowing all the...
Could be many things going on.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to line 6. Jeff's in Ottawa. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good, Glenn. How are you?
Very well, thank you, my friend. Go ahead.
I would like to give you some positive feedback.
Oh, thank you.
I called you last Sunday night,
yes,
and I asked you and your 2 guests about fear.
Yes.
And the fear that one needed to overcome in the sense that they were so used to alcohol being a part of their life and who they were that the lines got blurred. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
As to who they were and what they would be after the fact?
Sure, yep.
Okay. And what I did actually that night is I called the number from your major sponsor, and I had a good 30-minute conversation with somebody that night, and they assured me that somebody would call me the next day, and, sure enough, I got the call, and I can tell you that Monday morning at 1 o'clock a.m. was the last time I took a drink.
Attaboy.
And I'm not there yet, but I'm sure on the way. And geez, I could take an hour of your time, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was Sue that may have called me back, and we had a really good talk. And I've got geography working against me, but I was put in touch with some local support groups, and I got to tell you, I've never felt better, and I've actually, truthfully, had to force myself to stay up tonight just so I can tell you guys. The only reason I'm usually up this late at night is because I'm up drinking.
Yeah.
And well, here I am, and I got to tell you, I'm dog tired, but I'm so happy to be this tired. And my big fear, like I had alluded to last week when we talked, was the fear. Because I had been drinking so long, and I'm not the typical drunk, or at least I didn't think I was the typical drunk until I got that call Monday morning. I found out since that what I was really good at was hiding my drinking. I was the only one that knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
And I've got a week under my belt now, and I've got a little bit of hindsight looking back at it.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if I saved my own life or if this is something looking into 5 years into the future that would have killed me if I didn't look for the help.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, I hear people calling constantly, week after week, and my heart goes out to them that they're the underdog in the fight. But I got to tell you, I honestly feel like I'm on top of this one, Glenn, and I'm going to beat it, and I've got nobody else but you and your show to thank for it.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your kind words, and that's one of the reasons why we're here.
Yeah.
And what he did was he called the Bellwood 800 number, and Jeff spoke with somebody for about half an hour, and he thinks maybe it was Sue or one of the other wonderful staff at Bellwood who called him back, as they said they would, because it's very important. It's very important for people who are coming into recovery. We've been let down a lot. So when somebody says they're going to do something, for a big organization to do that I think it speaks volumes that they follow up and do something like that, because we know what it was like when someone said, we'll do something for you, and then it didn't happen. But in a crisis, Bellwood followed through with Jeff, and here's a guy with a week under his belt. Jeff, you've been set up with some supports in your hometown, Ottawa, and follow that up now, and things will definitely keep getting better. Just before we go to the other phone calls, I want to make sure we get this in, because this is really one of the main reasons that we have the opportunity to have you here, Dr. Johnston, and you, Sue. Talk a little bit about what Bellwood is doing Monday and Tuesday with Dr. Johnston, the two unbelievable workshops that are happening out in Markham.
So we're delighted to have Dr. Johnston with us. Tomorrow evening from 7 to 9, we're having a community awareness night at the Holiday Inn in Markham. And that's a free, open to the public, and we were talking about first steps earlier. This is an opportunity for someone who needs to learn more about eating disorder to take those first steps towards education and perhaps treatment if needed. So this is an open forum night with Dr. Johnston. There'll be a dialogue exchange, some information will be brought forward. And then the following day, we're having a clinical workshop, and that's primarily for healthcare professionals working with eating disordered population. So we're delighted to have Dr. Johnston with us for the next 2 nights.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
And keep you hopping.
Yeah, oh yes.
Tomorrow,
late nights and early mornings.
Well, at least you don't have the 8:45 day until Tuesday.
That's Tuesday.
Because we do like to sleep in on Mondays with this program, and I really want to encourage people. All the information on Dr. Johnston's 2 workshops with Bellwood, if you go to the bellwood.ca, as well, if you don't have the internet and you want to call, we have Bellwood's 800 number that you can call during the day tomorrow and book your registration through the staff there. So if you're in the area and you want to go out and you learn more about eating disorders as addiction, and the community awareness title of the workshop is Our Eating Disorders Addictions. And most certainly Dr. Johnston will be on hand to answer those questions and so many more. I was going to go to, just for everyone in the other room, Kaylee, I'm not going to go to the roll-in. I do want to tell people, though, if you can go, Jeff, if you can help Kelly there, just grab the still that has the information about the hockey trip. And put that up there. I'm putting them on the spot. I'm throwing them a curve here. We have a bus trip going to Ottawa to see the Pittsburgh Penguins take on the Ottawa Senators. It's a non-alcohol bus. So how many people used to go on bus trips when they drank? I'll put my hand up. You can't see me right now, and many times I didn't even remember the game. So this is an opportunity for you to remember the game. No, but it's a safe place. Because a lot of us, I don't want to go on those bus trips today. I choose not to. It's not a safe place for me. But March 1st and 2nd is a non-alcohol hockey bus trip. And the information that you want to get is Canadian Christian Tours. And their website's cctours.ca, or their 800 number that's at the bottom of that screen. You want to call there. We have about 20 seats left. And this is going to be the game's at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. We're leaving Saturday morning. We go to the game, and then included in the price is a dinner in Hull, Quebec. And then in the morning, a hot breakfast at Dunn's Famous Deli in Ottawa, and the bus trip home. So it's all covered under the cost that you see on your screen there. So thanks very much, guys. Sorry to throw the curve at you there, but I just wanted to get that in there and not kind of Well, I wanted to get that in there. And I want to go to a bunch of stats, but you know what? I want to make sure we get all our calls in here. So let's go to line 7. Judy's on line 7. Hi, Judy. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm not really sure why I'm calling.
Okay.
I've had an eating disorder for 30 years.
Okay.
It started when I was 11, and I'm 42 now. So, I don't know. I knew your program tonight was on eating disorders, and I wasn't planning on calling in. I just wanted to watch to see what information you had. And my experience has been, because I have a dissociative disorder as well, and I guess you would call it post-traumatic, whatever, but
sure.
That I've been to Toronto General, and they've basically said they can't help me because of the trauma that gets in the way of, and you can't work on both together, I guess. And so they've kind of just said, well, go and get all that sorted out. But the problem is, in the area I live in, there isn't help anywhere. So it's just really frustrating. There isn't a program. I'm on a waiting list for Guelph, but they said it's years to get into their program to work on either the eating disorder or the trauma. So I guess it's just, I don't know, this morning I have a really hard time now. I'm to the point where I just don't even want to leave my apartment, and part of it's just the eating disorder. But this morning in church, I wanted to put my hand up for prayer, and then I couldn't, and then I just felt the Holy Spirit speak into me and just say, you've given up. And then I almost started crying, and I went forward for prayer tonight, and they prayed for me and everything, and it's really been in my church that's gotten me, to stay alive for this long, because I've sort of gave up 10 years ago, and I was continuously trying to end it, but I'm still here, and I know that's God. And just now, when I called in, I was like, God, I don't even know what I'm calling in for. And I said, if I'm not the next person, I'm going to hang up, because I'm just so stressed about even calling. And it's like, well, I was the next person, but I don't even know what that means. I'm just kind of at a point where I know that God is the answer. I don't even call it a disease. I don't like that doctors call it a disease, because God didn't intend for you to have a disorder. And in my mind, any freedom I've gotten is in saying, okay, it was a choice that I made because I was in pain, and Satan used it and tricked me and got me into major bondage, and I've tried and tried to get out of it, and I can't get out of it.
Well, you know what? It's and Judy, I really want you to listen to both Dr. Johnston and Sue here, and I thank you very much for the phone call. You guys go ahead first. I want you to speak to Sue, but it is, as far as the whole disease part of it, if you just give me 1 second, okay? Because I just wanted to, from a spiritual side, we live in a fallen world. These things do exist. And people like Sue and Dr. Johnston and so many other people are gifted the way they are so that they can help those of us like us, okay? So it is a disease, okay? Mm-hmm. And prayer and spirituality is part of the healing, but there also is a clinical side, and now I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, it's definitely a disease, and I'm also a person of faith, Judy, and I'm glad to hear that you haven't given up hope, because there is always hope. It doesn't matter how long you've been sick with this, and it doesn't matter how much other pathology you have, you are not beyond the power of God to heal. And my turning point came when I was so desperate that I fell on my knees and asked for help. The help that came to me 8 weeks later was the darkest period of my life. I was in my mid-30s at that point. I'd been sick for 15 years. As far as I was concerned, my life was over. But I fell on my knees and begged God for help, and the help came in the form of some people who showed up in my life who offered to feed me, and I was given the grace to sit at their table and eat their food. That was the key. I couldn't get well until I surrendered and was willing to let somebody else feed me. And what I know today is that that was God, or for the viewers who don't believe in the word God, that's okay, a power greater than yourself, it doesn't matter. That God fed me through those people, and I had to sit down at their table and eat the food because I was so sick, I was incapable of feeding myself and had been for 15 years. The physical effects of not eating properly, whether it be under-eating, overeating, binging and purging, whatever your particular form of the disease is, it's important not to underestimate the consequences of that, the physical, medical, biological consequences of that. Our brains don't work when we're malnourished. And so the first part of this is I had to give up control. I didn't have any anyway. The disease was in control of me, but I felt as if I was in control of my weight, and it was what kept me safe in the world. It was my thing, and I hung on to it, and I thought I had chosen it. The truth was I was deathly ill with a disease over which I had no control whatsoever.
And that was the lie of the disease, right?
That was the lie. That was the lie, that I was doing it by choice.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
the disease lying to me, to keep me in its clutches. And God sent these people into my life to feed me and gave me the grace to say yes and go and eat the food that they gave me. Once I was, we call that being sober. Once we give up control and we let somebody else feed us, I call that being sober. Once I was able to do that, I was able to move through a spiritual path of recovery. It doesn't matter whether some people find a 12-step path or a 29-step path. It doesn't matter, as long as it's a spiritual path of recovery, because addiction is a spiritual disease. In its core, it is a spiritual problem, so it requires a spiritual solution. And nobody heals in isolation. It's so important to link up with other people who also share the same problem.
Because that's when you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's when you're vulnerable, and that's when the disease will lie to you and keep you in that prison.
Yeah.
And there are various things that allow us out of our prison, in whether it's Judy or any of the callers or viewers or you and I, in us getting better, in you getting better. What some people don't realize is you hold the key to allow you to reach through the bar and unlock the cell door to allow you out of your prison. You hold the key, and it's called choice.
Yeah.
And it's making those
have
choices.
to make a choice to ask for help instead of just jumping off a bridge somewhere or lying down and dying of this thing. So I hear that you've got hope. I really encourage you to continue to pray to your God, and I know that God will lead you out of the prison and show you the help that you need to access, and then give you the strength to say yes to the help when it comes along.
I'm glad to hear, Judy, that you're on the waiting list as well to get some help at a treatment center. So you stay on top of that one as well.
Short term, we always say to people, there's some people who call in and go, I can't get into somewhere, I don't have the money, it's too long. And when they're talking alcohol and drugs, one of the options are 12 steps and some other things. What are the options for somebody? In the interim of getting into treatment, what are some of the options for a person with an eating disorder? What can they do in the interim that doesn't cost them anything?
Well, there are 12-step fellowships available for people with eating disorders as well. There are a number of them. There's Anorexics and Bulimics Anonymous, there's Overeaters Anonymous, there's Food Addicts Anonymous, Eating Disorders Anonymous. There's a number of different fellowships that are available, and I really encourage you to reach out and ask for help, because there is help.
Yeah. Erica is on line 5 in Mississauga. Hi, Erica. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead, please.
I actually have a question for, I guess, the lady that does the eating disorders. Mine's a little bit different. I'm actually an overeater.
Okay.
And I'm actually on a waiting list for gastric bypass surgery. I guess that's the easy way out for me, I guess.
Well.
Sometimes I even try to starve myself because I'm sick of eating all the time. It's just like, I'm really, really depressed with myself, and I find it really, really hard to give up food or even cut down my portion sizes or even getting out there to exercise or do anything, And I actually called Bellwood before, too, and it's kind of expensive and stuff like that. I checked into that, and then now I'm checking into some other program, I guess, in Guelph, I guess the lady before me was talking about that as well. So I guess I take it there's a long waiting list for that. I just don't know what I can do. Like, I'm at my wit's end of eating, and I just don't understand how I can, eat so much, and what can I do to help myself not eat as much and do the exercise and get motivated, and I don't know.
Have you talked to your family doctor at all, Erica?
Yes, I have. I have a lot of medical problems due to being overweight.
Okay.
And a lot of them have a lot of reasons why I haven't been able to lose weight, which I'm now on medication for.
Okay.
I just started. I have, I don't know if you ever heard of, I have insulin resistance syndrome. So my pancreas is not producing enough insulin, so therefore my food that I eat just sits there.
Sure.
So I have to go on metformin to make it work properly, I guess.
Okay. We're getting short on time, so
Yeah.
Sue and Dr. Johnson, go ahead.
Eric, have you heard of Overeaters Anonymous? Overeaters Anonymous that we just mentioned. I think it was Judy that called, as a part of a fellowship that you could join with people who are struggling with the same compulsions that you may be.
Right.
That may be a first step for you, and it says there's no cost associated with that.
Yeah, it's really important to have that, to be able to talk to like people.
Yeah.
It's so important. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, it's just the mirror image of anorexia. It's no less a disease. It's no less serious a disease. People die from compulsive eating disorder just as much as they die from anorexia nervosa. And it is an illness. It isn't just a matter of willpower. It's not a matter of, well, if I just get out and exercise more. It's an illness in itself that we can't stop doing what we're doing, and that's where the help is needed. It's nobody heals in isolation from this problem or any other.
Exactly. Thanks, Erica, for the phone call. One of the other things too, we heard a lot of people talking about God, and I just want to throw in here, Celebrate Recovery is very much a Christian 12-step. Came out of Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life, the author of Purpose-Driven Life. Celebrate Recovery started in the States, and Celebrate Recovery in Canada's, as you see, celebraterecovery.ca. For those in this area, being the Golden Horseshoe, Hamilton, Burlington area, Celebrate Recovery just opened a new chapter in Burlington here, and it's out of Compass Point Bible Church. So if you want, we'll have some more information about that up on our website as well. But just because there was a lot of calls with the spiritual undertone tonight, or overtone, if you will, which is totally okay. And so Celebrate Recovery is something that you might want to look into as well. 2 minutes, really quickly. Alicia on line 2 in Hamilton. Hi, Alicia.
Hi. I just wanted to call and ask, I guess, talk about what I went through.
Okay, Alicia, you have about 60 seconds, hon.
Okay, well, basically, I had an eating disorder, but I used drugs to accomplish my goals.
Okay.
I turned to cocaine, and I also turned to any other drug that would suppress my appetite, like LSD, you name it. I tried everything. And I lost a lot of weight. I did a lot of damage to my body. And then later on that year, I got sexually molested by my stepfather, and that kind of added to the problem. But basically, I just want to say I was a suicidal person, and I know what it's like to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And to all the people out there who are dealing with, eating disorders or suicide, I just want to say that God really helped me. Jesus Christ changed my life, and I totally just suggest that you turn to Him if you're at your wit's end.
Alicia, thank you so much.
You.
And that's it's a wonderful phone call to finish the program on. And as you said, it's the spirituality part of recovery is essential.
Yeah. It doesn't happen otherwise.
No.
Yeah.
And we're under 30 seconds. What a pleasure it is to meet both of you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you
I wish you well on your workshops. I know you tour throughout North America with them. You're just a lovely person, and thank you so much for giving back. And Sue, thank you to Bellwood. As you heard this evening, there's people calling to let you know that you guys are making a difference. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.